I'm a 33-year-old woman named Lydia, and I've spent most of my life being described as intense, too much, or my personal favorite, unpredictable. That last one comes straight from my mother, Carol, who spent decades shaping a version of me for the world that I barely recognize. Carol is the kind of woman who sends handwritten thank you cards, chairs church fundraisers, and bakes muffins for local events, all while spinning stories about her poor, difficult daughter who just couldn't get her act together. She used to be a principal at our town's elementary school, and even in retirement, she floats through every room like she's still running morning assemblies. People love her. They see a sweet, concerned mother just trying her best. And for a long time, I let them believe that. But the woman behind closed doors isn't sweet or concerned. She's calculating. Controlled. She used to decide what clothes I wore, what friends were appropriate, and which boys were too rough around the edges for me to date. She'd hide her judgment behind concerned looks and soft-voiced warnings, but the control was constant. The worst part? She always made sure I looked like the problem. When I was 17, I had a panic attack during a school assembly. Out of nowhere, my vision blurred, I couldn't breathe, and I stumbled out of the gym in front of everyone. By the time I got home, my mother had already framed it to our neighbors as a serious breakdown. At school, I noticed people watching me differently. My best friend stopped inviting me over. I didn't know why until years later, when I found out Carol had told my boyfriend's parents I had violent tendencies. He dumped me that weekend. No warning. Just disappeared. That became her pattern. Every time I pushed back, she escalated. If I refused to attend one of her events, she'd call me unstable. If I spoke up during family dinners, I was acting out. She told relatives she worried I might snap one day. I didn't understand how far it went until much later. A few years ago, I got promoted at my corporate job. I moved out, bought my own condo, and started spending my weekends hiking or reading instead of being dragged to church potlucks. I thought I was finally free, but that's when things got worse, not better. She started visiting my neighbors. Not to catch up, not to say hi, but to warn them. She said I had episodes. She said I might be a danger to myself and others. One neighbor, who used to ask me to babysit her kids every other Friday, pulled me aside one evening and told me she was no longer comfortable with me watching the kids. When I asked why, she hesitated and then said, "There are rumors about your mental health." I went home and sat on the floor for hours, trying to understand what was happening. My best friend Amy, who's been in my corner since middle school, called me in shock one weekend. She had run into Carol at a local fair. According to Amy, Carol was standing near the popcorn booth telling a group of women that I once tried to break into her house through the kitchen window. I've never even touched that window. I asked Amy if she could talk to Carol directly and clarify, thinking maybe there was some misunderstanding. She did. Carol started crying, claiming I was twisting everything, and that she was only trying to protect me from making mistakes. I decided to let it go. Again. But then something happened that changed everything. I applied to adopt a rescue dog, a quiet, older Labrador that reminded me of the one I had as a kid. I passed the interviews, the home check, everything. Then, 3 days before I was scheduled to pick him up, I stuck in cheers. I got a call from the shelter saying they received an anonymous email claiming I had a history of emotional instability and a violent incident on record. It didn't make sense. I've never even been in a physical fight. I asked for a copy of the report, and after some back and forth, they sent me a redacted version. I forwarded it to a friend in it, who was able to trace the IP address embedded in the email headers. It came from my mother's internet connection. Same address, same service provider, same router ID. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her this time. That was the